Hi everybody, welcome to Woodfired Weekly at Manna from Devon Cooking School. This week we're going to be talking about flues, wood-fired oven flues. And the first question of course is, do I need a flue? And the answer is no, you don't need a flue. If your oven is outdoors, very simple outdoor ovens are just a dome with a hole cut in them and the exhaust comes straight out of the door. Usually called a beehive oven. That works absolutely fine, except if you lean in a little bit close, you lose your fringe. You might breathe in some of those fumes, which will be unpleasant and also could be unhealthy. There's carbon monoxide and other stuff coming out of the oven, and you don't want to be breathing too much of that in. Also, you're going to end up just with smoky hair and smoky clothes after a day cooking at the wood-fired oven. So the very simplest flue will just be a little tunnel on the front of the oven with a flue stuck in that and a meter of pipe, which will just take all of those nasties up above your head. So from a comfort and health point of view, a flue is a really nice thing to have, and it also sometimes makes the oven work a little bit more efficiently. So generally speaking, these ovens work on a circulation system. Nice smooth rounded inside means the air can flow easily through the oven. The dome in the oven is higher than the flue, which is usually at the front, so that we get most heat going into the dome and not disappearing up the flue. If the oven is not drawing particularly well, then a little bit more flue, a little bit of a longer flue or a slightly wider flue might improve that draw and make the oven work more efficiently, get your fire burning more brightly. Similarly though, you can have the flue which is working too efficiently, so that all of the heat is being drawn up the flue, and we don't want to see too much flame disappearing up the flue. And you can see in our little video here that if the fire is too near the front or there's too much draw, then flame will disappear up, and that means you're not putting heat into the dome, you're putting heat up the flue. And who wants heat up the flue? Absolutely nobody. I mentioned that most ovens will have the flue at the front. So this oven has a flue at the front, even though it looks like the flue is on top of this oven, but actually the flue is right here, and then the flue actually bends and disappears up there. But the reason they're at the front is so that we can put maximum heat into the dome and not too much going up the flue. Some ovens do have a flue on top. It's just not so efficient, because if you look inside it, you'll see a lot more flame disappearing up the flue, and then it's not heating up the oven as well. It's also quite desirable to be able to cut the oven off from the flue to separate the two, so that if we're cooking using just retained heat, then we can isolate the flue. No air is being drawn out of the oven, all the hot air stays inside, and circulation is absolutely minimized. So that means you want a door which will isolate the flue from the oven, like this one does, very nicely. And sometimes if you've got a swing door which doesn't isolate the flue, then a damper, you might find there is a damper in the flue, or maybe you should get a damper fitted in the flue, because that will allow you to do that retained heat cooking in the most efficient way without losing lots of heat. If you do have a flue, then the efficiency of that flue can be affected by a number of things. First of all, the length of the flue. And if you've got a flue which is not drawing terribly well, so you're getting a bit of smoke leaking out of the front here, the first thing always to try, because it's the simplest thing, is just to stick another meter of flue on top. Get a connecting piece and put another meter of flue, and you might find that that draws perfectly well. Slightly more difficult is the width of the flue, but you might find that a wider flue gives you a better draw. And often, of course, if an oven has been built with a narrow flue, then it's a little trickier to alter that. Sometimes you're forced to have very high flues. If you've got an oven in a building and it's got to go up through a couple of floors, that might overperform somewhat. So you might then have a damper fitted so you can slow it down ever so slightly. Other things which can affect it are, have we got other drafts around it? If we've got a lot of wind blowing over the top of the flue, that can affect things. Also, if you've got another draft in the house which is pulling one way, then that can affect whether the flue can actually draw. And this is sometimes a problem in commercial kitchens, because they'll have their wood-fired oven here, and over there they've got a great bank of fans, extractor fans, drawing air in that direction. So you've got this sort of tension between the two. Generally speaking, a little household fan won't cause the same problem. If you live in the bottom of a valley, then you quite often get air falling down into that valley as a downdraft, and that can then be pushing down your flue. And then you need an anti-downdraft canopy on top of it, which kind of just distributes the air around it rather differently, so you don't get the same problem. All of these things can be overcome, of course, by the wizardry of modern technology. The most common problem we all get, of course, is that we just have a cold flue when we start the oven up. And this is certainly a problem for us in the winter. There will be a column of cold air sat in the flue, and that cold air wants to fall down. And then we've got hot air in the oven, and that hot air wants to go up, and they kind of meet in the middle. And then we get a problem because exhaust gets forced out here, and we get a billowing of smoke. That usually only lasts for 5 or 10 minutes, and then the flue is warmed up, the cold plug is forced out, and we get our smooth, efficient flue back up and running. The other thing which affects flues are bends, and we've got 2 big bends in this one, and my other flue up here, I've got two bends in it. And flues are often bent because if they're in a building, buildings are just built in funny ways, and the flue has to go this way or that way to get round a beam or an RSJ, whatever it might be. So they have to bend a little bit, and that's usually not too bad. But whenever you get a bend, you get turbulence. So if you're thinking, I'm going to put this flue in and I'm going to go up a bit, and then I'm going to go 90 degrees, and then I'm going to go up a bit, and then I'm going to go round there, and then I'm going to go up there, and that'll all be great. You might find that it's not great at the end of the day because there's just too much turbulence and little opportunity for smooth airflow. Whether your oven is indoors or outdoors, the top of the flue is going to be exposed to the elements, and what you don't want is loads of weather coming down your flue. So you'll certainly want a little rain cap or something like that on the top. Whether you're indoors or outdoors, your flue might be going through a roof of some sort. And then, of course, you need some sort of system to allow that to go through without letting the rain in. And the simplest thing you can get is just a silicone grommet. And if you look online, you'll find lots of silicone grommets of various sizes. And as long as the flue is not too close to your oven, then it won't get hot enough to affect that silicone grommet. And it just means you can put it straight through a roof and form a nice watertight seal around it. So that is a very, very simple solution which I've used in several instances. If you notice, my flues are super duper stainless steel, all bells and all whistles, twin walled and insulated, because we are indoors here effectively, and we're a commercial premises, so we have to have very super duper, very fancy flues. Before I had this all built, and when this was outdoors, I just had a very simple setup here with a single walled pipe that went up and through a roof with a silicone grommet, and it worked absolutely efficiently for years and years until we decided to have the whole thing closed in. So there needn't be a complicated bit of kit, especially if your oven is outdoors or in an outdoor kitchen setup, but here we have to be a little bit more sophisticated. I hope that's helped a little bit to clarify some things about flues and give you a little bit more understanding. But if you do have any questions, please just put them in the comments and we will respond. Thanks for joining us at Woodfired Weekly. If you have enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We put a recipe or a little technical talk like this every week, and we'll see you next time.